Alafia, and welcome back to Black.loved.free, a spiritual political podcast dedicated to Black spirituality, healing, and Black liberation. I am your host, Brendane, a reluctant anthropologist, a hoodoo, and a student of the Ifa Orisha Isheshe tradition, as well as an energy healer. So I'm coming to y'all on the tail end of the eclipse in tropical Pisces in sidereal Aquarius with a doozy of an episode. So buckle up. It's been a year since our last season, and I can't say that I am too sorry about it. I originally made plans to do season 2 with the support of grant money so that I could really talk about our ancestors' ways of survival with song and folklore, video, etc. But I needed the money to do that, to have someone edit, to have someone maintain other aspects of production. And so I took a break, applied for grants, and also to keep the momentum of the learning going since the end of last season. We have been giving workshops through our transformative Black feminist resistance practice series. We've also started a Substack and a YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere else where you see podcasts, right, you should follow us over there. To be honest, I imagined those spaces to be a kind of stopgap between season 1 and season 2. I wanted them to be different and sometimes deeper ways to engage with the work that we started with season 1, where we could keep the learning, healing, and doing going in community with each other while I found some kind of glucose guardians or some ancestral wealth thieves to fund this work. And in hindsight, I realized that I was treating the podcast like an academic project with a beginning and an end and a fast paced, urgent timeline. But I've learned the hard way that I cannot rush anything these days, not even my growth, that I must do things in my own time, always. And it turns out, as destiny would have it, that I had some growing, some maturing, some grieving, some boundary setting, and some battling to do. I had to come back to the mic with more learning about myself. And to be real, y'all, I am living through the hardest time of my life. And at the beginning of my Saturn return, I was in conversation with a spiritual teacher of mine, and she just told me, like, what you're going through is an initiation. And so I feel like over the last 2 years, I've had to shed so much of myself and what I thought was real and true about who I was. I'm the kind of person that likes to live through the hardship, not really talk to nobody about it, and learn what I need to learn so I don't got to go through that shit again, and then write about it and share it with others. I'm always kind of writing from a reflective space that is usually, months or years later after that really hard experience. I have learned in my recent divinations that that kind of practice, that lack of vulnerability on my end, is a manifestation of this pathological understanding of independence and healing that was not in tune with the natural order. I was so used to giving and giving and giving and giving and being in the position of giving that when it came time for me to surrender, to receive, to learn and to know, it really came crashing down. So many towers came crashing down. But in my divination, my most recent one, my Eok likened it to the parable of talents. And funny enough, those of you who read Black feminist work might find this funny, right? When she mentioned it, I assumed that she was talking about Octavia Butler's book, but she was actually referring to the biblical text. So if you don't know the parable of talents, I encourage you to read it for yourself, because we got to start reading things for ourselves in this newest stage of white supremacist, crystal, fascist facts. And we need to be able to challenge what's being told to us, right? So don't just take my word for it. Take some time to look at it yourself so that you can glean your own understanding. But I'll summarize it quickly. In short, a man of great wealth trusted 3 of his servants with his property in the form of talents. And back in that day, whatever day that was, a talent was equal to about 20 years worth of wages. So to one servant, he gave 5 talents. To another, he gave 2 talents. And to one, he gave 1 talent. And then he went off tricking around somewhere, went on vacation, whatever it is that people who got 100 years of wealth to give away, right? Do. And while he was gone, the servants with 5 talents and 2 talents, they went out, they did some business, maybe they sold some ads, who knows what they did, right? They did some trickery. They were able to double their talents. But the servant with 1 talent buried theirs in the ground out of fear. They knew the wealthy man was harsh, and they were afraid of losing the investment and facing his wrath. So they did nothing with it. They just buried it in the earth. And when he returned, he was like, okay, so what did y'all do with my talents? And the ones that he gave 5 and 2 to showed him their increase. They each had doubled theirs, and in turn, he gave them more blessing. The other servant who buried his talent came back with only 1. And so that wealthy man snatched that shit from him, called him wicked and slothful, and then gave it to the one who had 10. Now, my ER, she was reading the fuck out of me. Not gonna lie. And she reminded me that the way that I was moving through life was like the servant with 1 talent, holding the talents. And here I mean the special gifts that I have, because if I had about 20 years of wealth, baby, honey, boo boo child, you would not see me here. I would be on the beach somewhere. Right? But she was saying that I was holding those talents that I have to myself out of fear of violence, of backlash, of danger, of abandonment. I was afraid that if I truly, truly, truly were seen in the fullness of who I am and what I got to offer, that I would experience the worst. And the gag was that even in that false security and safety I had made for myself, right? Burying my talents in the ground, I was still experiencing what I feared. And when I began to reflect on the story for myself, I thought about the fact that the servant with the 1 talent didn't consider the fact that they had received a talent actually showed that they possessed the skill and knowledge required to multiply it. I'm sure a man that wealthy had more servants than those 3, right? He knew that they had some skill or something that they could do with that wealth. Another thing that servant didn't do that I be doing a lot, or let's say that I have done because I am changing, is that the servant didn't reach out to others to help them figure out what to do with the talent. Like he could have just been like, oh, what y'all about to go do? Like, y'all about to go to the market? Y'all about to go get some goats and flip them? Like, or, you about to buy you some houses? Like, what you about to do? You about to become a landlord? Like, what you about to do? Like, he didn't even do that. He buried it. Where I really was sitting and meditating with this was how many of us are like me, right? We are hiding our talents out of fear of wrath, of loss, and honestly, out of ignorance that there's something else that we can do with them. The only remedy to burying my talent in the ground was to change. And I had to change in the way that my Iya and the Orisha who came through called a transformation through generosity. So they wanted me, right, to share more of my experience as I'm experiencing it, rather than holding that pain or that suffering or that joy, right, or that happiness to myself and releasing it later when it felt safe, right? I was admonished to do more than share mere glimpses and tidbits of what I have experienced, what I know, and what I see, what I think others can digest. And in that divination, I really had a revelation that I was trying to package myself as small as possible so that I could be digestible to others. And I also thought that it was me keeping the best parts of myself to myself. But that stinginess allowed me, in some ways, it allowed me to survive in environments that others might take advantage of me, right? They don't know all what I can do or all what I got. But what I've really found that it did was it kept me from being able to fully connect and fully be in community with others and to share my burdens and my talents. Right. And so I learned that I have to be willing to expand while holding myself with care. I have to let those thought forms go in this new beginning, in the initiation into my life post Saturn return. And in this process, I'm allowing myself and what has been given to me to multiply through your hands, or maybe literally your ears or your eyes if you're watching this. I want to share my experiences with y'all without the false veil of arrival, without this notion of guru, because I'm not one, right? I'm living and learning. And to trust that those who are aligned with me can hold me in my expansion and not require me to be buried in the earth. You see, I am becoming again, a state achieved through many deaths, many initiations, and many rebirths. I'm determined this time and every time moving forward to live in integrity and to live in my purpose and to live in love and to be loved, so I won't keep myself from you any longer. And I would hope that you would be willing to be transformed through generosity with me. This season will be entitled, I am ruthlessly devoted to myself. And each episode will present a building block to bring this into being in our lives. So if you're like, girl, what the fuck is ruthless self-devotion? Like, what are you talking about? First, I'm gonna be like, where you been at? We've been talking about this on Instagram. We've been talking about this on YouTube. We've been talking about this in the workshops. But if you ain't catch it there, I'll tell you. Ruthless self-devotion is a Black feminist anti-oppression practice that is about reclaiming the self, one's spirit, body, mind, and power from interpersonal and institutional forms of oppression. It is the practice of defining oneself for oneself with safety, joy, and without the risk of harm. So this isn't a capitalist form of individualism, right? I'm not saying get rid of everybody in your community and get it out the mud by yourself. First of all, no. And second of all, that's not what we're doing here. Ruthless self-devotion is an inherently Black, inherently African, inherently feminist, inherently abolitionist practice of loving, knowing, and tending to oneself in principled, aligned community with others. This practice requires a commitment to healing, to self-reflection and self-transformation alongside community transformation and world building. It requires loving, supportive, and challenging connections with our ancestors, our spirit guides, and other beings. We began this work in season 1, and so here we are, returning, going deeper into the vortex. So as I was thinking about ruthless self-devotion and developing it, and also reading for this episode, I was reading the Hoodoo Book of Flowers, which I have sitting right here. In it, Arthur Ricky Doc Flowers, or Baba Flowers for those who know him as such, starts with initiation, right? So before you get to any learning about the hoodoo or encountering it further in the book, you are also reading about the process of initiation and what it takes. And so in the first chapter, in verse 4, which is entitled Hoodoo Will, he describes the term ruthless self-discipline. And so I thought what I would do is just to read a little bit of how he defines ruthless self-discipline. And we can think about it in the genealogy and ecosystem of ruthless self-devotion. And it reads, Book 1, verse 4, Hoodoo Will. Kandakes do not retreat, and neither do I. I will not be defeated. I will not be denied. 1, 4, to will, to do, to be able. doing what you know you need to do when you know you need to do it. Any level of achievement requires the application of the disciplined will. Without the severe discipline of the great player, you're not in the game. How can you be free if you cannot command yourself with the ruthless self-discipline of those who would master their own destiny? Fa 143. The hoodoo way accepts responsibility for whatever befall you. Whatever it was got through your game. My bad. I'ma do better. Pride yourself on the quality of your moves. Ongoing adjustments to life, terrain, planed envelopments so precisely sequenced, so exquisitely calibrated, even stillness is action. The fruit of timing, positioning, and the decisive moment. Position yourself to live out your greatest dreams. Horse of the Kandakes, warrior queens who stopped Rome at the gates of Africa. 147. Once you're conscious of yourself as self-guided and ultimately malleable, you shape life to your liking. You make a plan, you gain the necessary skills, you position yourself. You assume you can do anything anybody else has done and always be willing to do a little more than anybody else would. You are the ascensionist, are you not? What others dream, you demoja. And so coming upon this definition really was beautiful and revelatory for me because this was the forefather, I guess, when you want to think about it like that, to Ruthless Self-Devotion. I came to Ruthless Self-Devotion from my readings of Black feminist texts and my own spiritual practice, from divinations, from readings where I got a reading from a spiritualist and she literally was like, you need to have a willful disregard for others. And what she meant by that was that I was so attuned to a practice of self-abandonment that in order for me to balance things out and truly achieve what I was called here to do, I had to start practicing disregarding other people. And so I moved from that through reading June Jordan and her talking about her ruthlessness to her own political practice. So the ways in which she will hate those who hate her, she will love those who love her. And that she knew that in order to see liberation, she had to have a vigilance about her self-love and a duty to herself that could not be questioned. I came to it through the writings of the Combahee River Collective, where they talked about not being on pedestals as Black feminists, but how their identity and their experiences were central and essential to a liberation that they could achieve. And then I also included and brought in my girl Bell Hooks in her work on self-recovery through Sisters of the Yam. And I was thinking about all of these works and thinking about what it meant to really build a spiritual and political practice and what were the components of that. And so when I read this, the Hoodoo Book of Flowers, it was just like, yes, of course, right? Of course, nothing is truly new under the sun. Of course, I didn't come up with this by myself. Of course, your girl is tapped in. And in all seriousness, all right, the elders and the ancestors reminded me that though things did not go according to my plan, all right, that doesn't mean that I've strayed away. All it means is that I've come closer to myself and come closer to my purpose. And so this season, we will look at the components of a practice of ruthless self-devotion. And as always, we'll journey through Black feminist theory, Black and African indigenous spiritual healing, and self-reflection. And of course, we'll still be reflecting on our spiritual political practices in relation to the world. It is my hope that my vulnerability makes a way for you, listener, and for me, right, to be free. And that this practice keeps me in alignment with my own destiny because we'll need each other in the new worlds that we're building. So let's dive into our journey of ruthless self-devotion. And we'll start, like all spiritual practices, through initiation. So y'all know what it is. We always start with the definition of what it is that we're talking about. And so initiation, right, is a kind of death. It is dying to the old self and resurrecting as someone new. A lot of indigenous spiritualities cultivate initiation as a series of processes of challenge and transformation that take the initiate from one stage or state to another, right? From child to adult, from non-priest to priest, from non-shaman to shaman. And these initiations usually come after a period of learning and or experience. They're the trial that really tests whether you know what the fuck is going on, whether you know what the fuck you're talking about, whether you learn what you needed to learn to progress to the next stage of life. They might be tests of knowledge, of will, of fortitude, and of strength. And in many indigenous cultures, in order to become a shaman, in order to heal others, in order to do readings, do divinations, etc., you have to go through the initiation, the loss, and the rebuilding, the resurrection to do your work. And so this passage of transformation, of initiation, is inherent in African indigenous practices, where there is a deep understanding of balance and of natural order, right? Where you don't move on, you don't progress, you don't ascend without some kind of sacrifice. And so, any tradition that teaches that you can amass and hoard, right? You can move from stage to stage to stage in life without losing anything is one that is rooted in capitalism. And so, new age spirituality, where folks feel like they can quantum leap or, engage in certain spiritual practices of manifestation without a kind of sacrifice, or learn tarot one day and then become a tarot reader the next, right? Got folks confused about what constitutes spiritual growth and power. We are taught that by spiritually bypassing death or spiritually bypassing discomfort, that we can be as abundant as possible, that the kind of Christian understanding of death as sin, as something to avoid, and um, discomfort and sacrifice as the kind of work that a savior experiences so that you don't have to. In my own study and in my own practice, I've learned that that is not indigenous truth that's aligned with the cycles of nature. And our ancestors' practices were aligned with those cycles, right? That imposition of growth and power without sacrifice, without change, is capitalist white supremacy and anti-Blackness. That is Christo-fascist understanding and view of the world. And that is part and parcel of what is wreaking havoc in people's spirits and lives and on the earth today. In Women's Wisdom from the Heart of Africa, Sambomfu Some talks about her village's initiation rituals, where children become adults through a series of challenges. And through these initiations, they learn their soul purpose, they glean information about why they exist, and they're not doing this alone, right? They have the support of their community. We want to think about another example of initiation, right? Zora Neale Hurston, when she was doing her work on hoodoo, got initiated into several traditions of hoodoo. And in some of them, right, she doesn't discuss with us about what she had to experience. But in others, she details having to go through certain rites, such as fasting for days without food and sometimes water, having to fetch certain things that were hard or damn near impossible to find. Through these challenges, like the fasting, starving the body so the soul can expand, so the spirit can be closer to God. The search for the impossible or the near impossible, so that she could test her own perseverance and learn more about herself. And also for the practitioner to test and see, like, are you really about it? Right. And so for me, where I was coming from before this initiation was understanding spirituality in a kind of infant way, right? Where I petition my ancestors. I petition my spirit guides for things and they just give it to me, and I don't have to lose nothing. I don't have to cry. I don't got to go through no fucking hardship. And so I had to grow up because I have purpose and power that is greater than what I can amass for myself. And so my initiation into ruthless self-devotion began with my Saturn return, began with that fateful Venus retrograde in the summer of 2023. And it began with me losing all of the things that I had gained, right, through self-betrayal that cloaked itself as love, as care, and as community. I had built towers around myself through a strict practice of self-abandonment. I had so deeply internalized others' projections of my unworthiness that I thought that martyrdom and self-sacrifice were the only way someone as unworthy as me would receive the love that I wanted to grow in my life. With every initiation, we meet Eshu Elegba, the Orisha of the crossroads, who sends messages to the other Orisha and to Olodumare, right? Who also presents us with choices and pathways forward from wherever we are. In his presence, we are reminded that we are never stuck. And we petition him to give us permission to enter into the spiritual work of change, the initiation, to embrace a new beginning, or to choose to continue the path that we've already taken. We thank Eshu for his support and his guidance as we embark upon this journey towards our destinies. Let's move to our testimony section. About 2 weeks ago, I watched Juju Time's video about Oya, where she reads this story from Louisa Teich's book, Jambalaya, the Natural Woman's Book of Personal Charms and Practical Rituals. And so I want to read this story with you all now as we have entered into this journey of change. Oya Yansa is the queen of the winds of change. She is feared by many people because she brings about sudden structural change in people and things. Oya does not just rearrange the furniture in the house. She knocks the building to the ground and blows away the floor tiles. She is the cyclone and the earthquake. Oya fans her skirts and blows the branches from the trees. Should she choose to cry, torrential rains fall on the earth. She is the mother of the mind. She can impart genius, restore memory, or slap you with insanity. Oya opens her mouth, flicks out her tongue, and lightning strikes. She has 9 heads. She is the river Niger. No one can be certain of Oya's movement. No one can capture her smile. She is the mistress of disguises. Yesterday, Oya was a gentle lamb. Today, a buffalo trampling the earth beneath her feet. Tomorrow, she'll be a rainbow. Maybe. When Iku, death, hovers near, Oya listens for his rattle. She is La Dueña del Cimentario. Are you one of those sisters who fancies herself to be an Amazon? Do you wear a knife in your belt and study the martial arts? Then prepare to meet your mistress, Oya the warrior queen. Think fast. Fill your lungs with air. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. Oya is not to be played with. Are you a warrior against stagnation? Have you the courage to transform yourself? Oya will shake your soul loose from its foundation, hurl you from the tower of false pride, sweep you clean of debris and madness, and plant you on fresh ground. So here's the tale. Whirling Wind was the one who cast Ifa for 9 skirts on the day she heard the cry. Help, Oya, help me change. The human held to pain and said, my head is dizzy with ugly thoughts. My belly is hard with greed. My knees are weak with the weight of guilt. and the leaves will not cure me. Oya spun around on her toes. The human cried, "What must I do for you, Oya? What is your price for my cure?" Oya spun around on her fingers. "Must I give you all my gold? Must I surrender my ego? Shall I beg your forgiveness?" Oya spun around on her head. The human screamed and cried, "Please, twirling woman, help me, help me." Oya flashed her dark mirror and said, "If you wish release, human, simply look into my mirror and change. You who need courage, look into my mirror and change. If you desire wisdom, simply look into my mirror and change. Power can be yours if you will. Look into my mirror and change." And so the human looked into her mirror and changed. "Oh, yeah, my head is clear. My belly soft. My knees are strong. What must I do to pay you for this wonder?" Oya took a wide-legged step and fanned her skirts just so, and all the curing leaves fell from the trees and laid a path before the human. Whirling Wind was the one who cast Ifa for 9 skirts on the day she heard the cry. Oya smiled and said, "You who seek transformation need only look into my mirror and change." I will link Juju Time's video in the show notes because her reflection is beautiful. It led me to my own. After seeing her video, I began to study Oya more. I study the Orisha pretty regularly as part of my spiritual practice, reading, trying to find any information about them as much as possible. But I came to the Orisha through Oshun. I came to learn more about Ifa through Oshun. And then I learned about Baba Shango, and Oya is his wife. And in some traditions, she is his wife. In others, she is his sister. It just depends on the oral tradition and your lineage and how you learn. But as I began to study her, I really realized I was doing myself a disservice by riding the light skin wave of just reading and knowing Oshun, right? The kind of the Orisha that most people associate or know of because of Beyonce. But when I came to read about Oya, honey, right, I came to understand her as one of the most powerful warriors of the Orisha. She is stronger and more gutta than Shango. She has a ruthlessness about her approach to war and really to life that inspires me during this fight for my own life. At the time that I started reading about her, I was so unsettled in my spirit. I'm dealing with so much in my life right now and so many difficulties and hardships. And it was starting to affect me. I just wasn't able to think clearly. I wasn't able to do the creative things that I wanted to do. I was dealing with so much grief, so much anger, so much loss. And honestly, I am still dealing with these things, right? But have more spiritual tools to deal with them. I was reading about her, knowing her as this warrior who comes and doesn't come lightly. Like when you ask Oya to handle it, Oya gets at the root. She does not fucking play. And challenges that I was going through felt so deep and so great. I was like, I gotta go to the greatest warrior in the Orisha. I felt that I had no choice but to pray to her. I was feeling hurt. I was feeling like something needed to change, but I was not fully honest with myself about what exactly I needed to let go of. I knew I was taking a risk doing this, right? Like I knew that there was a chance and the high probability that Oya would answer my call and rip through things like a tornado and cut away everything that was not necessary for me to move forward. But I had come to just such a place where I was just like, I need to get into integrity and alignment with my Ori, with my own spirit. So that day, I prayed to Oya. I said, Oya, girl, help me change. Bring me change. Let me look into your dark mirror and change. Help me to cut away the things in my life that aren't in alignment with my highest destiny. And so that night, my latest lover came to my home looking, sounding, and being different. We had had an argument the day before, and I assumed that she and I would be talking about that we would be having a reconciliatory conversation. But I soon realized that the person that I had known and cared for the past 5 months was not the person who was like sitting with me and talking with me. She had changed. Like her demeanor, her affect, just the things that she was saying and doing was completely different. And what I thought would be a conversation to reconcile actually turned out to be that painfully familiar condemnation that I had gotten previous romantic relationships that typically goes like, you are not enough for me to grow. The love that you give me is inadequate, and what you ask for is too much. And I sat there and I was just like, fuck, no, not again. I thought that, like, damn, like, I thought that I did the work. And this time I showed up differently than I had in the past. This time I wanted to be accepted as I am, to be seen in the fullness of my love. I thought she had the capacity for me to unmask and to be safe. As a neurodivergent person, I spend so much of my time thinking about what I say and what I do and my interactions with others. And I thought that I could be myself with her. And this is in fact what she told me in the beginning. And this was the first romantic relationship that I thought I could try articulating my boundaries and showing up as myself and not having to mask, like, when I'm feeling sad or when something is bothering me, I could just show how I'm feeling. And she told me that she appreciated my beauty and my mind. So I shared my thoughts and my opinions with her as freely as I could, right? A gift that I had never given myself in past relationships. I used to date people who didn't want to hear me talk. And so I thought that this was different. As things progressed in the 5 months that we dated each other, our arguments tended to center around the very thing that I thought or was told was welcome, which was my voice, my expression. And so that night, she looked me in my eyes and told me that I was, quote, not worth the work required to be with me, end quote. That she had done all the work that she was going to do in our relationship. And as she talked, I realized that if I weren't willing to compress myself into the predetermined space that she had for lovers, which honestly sounded like a space big enough for a doll, that I could not be with her. As she detailed all the reasons why she resented me, scorching the earth and burning any bridge of connection, I was shook. In the words of the great K. Michelle, like, girl, no, not you. You see, this woman and I had traveled together. She was with me when I got to see my grandmother alive for the first time on July 6th. My grandmother had a battle with cancer. And this visit home, she thought she was strong enough to sit in a chair after being bedridden for weeks. Very Virgo determination. And she ended up not having enough strength to sit. So she fell. She kind of slid out of the chair onto the floor, and my aunt, who was caregiving for her, was there. She was present, but she was alone. She was the only person caregiving for her, and she couldn't pick my grandmother up off the floor. So she reached out for help. We just so happened to be driving nearby, getting ready to head back to Baltimore. So I decided to stop and help my grandmother, and put her back in her at home, like an at home version of a hospital bed. It was really difficult for me to see my grandmother in that state, to see her so frail, to see her so dependent. This was a woman who, for the 70 years of her life, like I had never seen her ask for help or need anything. So it was hard to see her in that state. Together, the three of us, me, my ex, and my aunt, lifted my grandmother off the floor and placed her into her bed. That was the last time that I got to hold her, to kiss my grandmother, to say that I loved her. Of course, in this plane, because she died on July 10th. And my ex paramour was there. She was there with me during her memorial service, holding my hand and helping to dry my tears. So I was confused. Surely the cold, distant person in front of me wasn't the same person who cared for me as I navigated that loss and that grief, right? Of someone who means so much to me. Surely the cold, distant person in front of me wasn't the same person who cared for me as I navigated another challenge, another battle, another piece of my initiation, which is this legal battle that was brought on after I tweeted about my experiences being stalked and harassed in graduate school. I wasn't ready to accept that the same person who comforted me after I was devastated by the judge's denial of the motion to dismiss the case was the same one who would dismiss me in my own house. No, not you. But I realized with the help of my wonderful, amazing, beautiful friends, my wonderful, amazing, beautiful therapist, my wonderful, amazing, beautiful spirit team, the Orisha that came through in my divination, that I mistook her presence as the evidence that I had grown, because she seemingly wasn't as mean or callous or unforgiving as the other lovers that I had. I misunderstood what kind of gift from the universe she was. Her presence wasn't evidence so much that I had changed, but rather my own refusal to be silenced or to commit to shirking my own needs for another's. My refusal to see myself as unworthy made this familiar moment of rejection and betrayal different. Oya brought me the change I had prayed for. She gave me an opportunity to see myself in her dark mirror. And in that moment, I was forced to look at myself anew after the fallen tower of that romantic connection. I am at a crossroads. After trudging through the remains of the ruins of my own life again and again, after yet another lover looked me in the eyes and said that I am too much, I have a choice. After years of trying my hardest to be kept, to be intelligible and known, to make myself small enough to be handled not so gently by these niggas, I can choose to hold myself with dignity and to take up the space the world already affords Black women. That is to be too much. I am tired of believing the worst of myself and finding lovers who can't help but blame me for talking, trying, crying, feeling, and untying my tongue because they don't see themselves as worthy of the love and compassion that I've fought to keep flowing in my life, and that flowed freely to them. I am tired of opening my chest only to be told my bones are too heavy, and my heart, expanded from years of heartbreak and growth and forgiveness and self-recovery, is too big to handle with care. I am tired of being told that I have little to no worth again and again. God damn. I thought that maybe this time things would be different, that I had learned somehow to avoid or evade all of the hurt, that enough time had passed, that I had done enough healing to bring the love that I desired into my life. And for the 5 months that we dated, She seemed to be the best match for me thus far. Who was this person in front of me, echoing the painful words of past lovers and my mother? Fuck, how did I end up here again? Alexis Pauline Gumbs, in her most recent essay, Survival Marvels, The Portal Poetics of Cheryl Clark, writes, time is not straight. Time spirals and veers, embraces and releases. She shows up with a U-Haul after one date. Time doesn't move stubbornly forward. She comes back and helps an ex-girlfriend mourn the loss of her most recent lover, maybe even helps her raise her kids. Time is not obsessed with progress. She wants you to come back and revisit lessons you thought you had already learned. Time shows up brand new, as an imp and a trickster. Time is guided not by security, but by the risk of love. Again, this instant, this triumph, time is a lesbian. Now that I've experienced lesbianic love, and now that I know time to coil like a spiral, like a vortex, like a portal, shout out to Sarah Makiba Days and Jada K. Story and Saint Zolani, who are the twin hoodoo mothers. Shout out to my hoodoo collective who have been in that vortex and that portal with me. I resonate with Gum's wisdom. I know that time is a lesbian. That is to say, that again and again, she meets me with a promise of renewal. I've been frustrated. I've been angry. And I have thought to myself again and again, even after all of this change, here I am learning this lesson. Here I am having to sever the savior, which is Jada K. Story's words and framework, and save my motherfucking self. Here I am again, having to break my heart with the hope and with the knowledge that it must expand. I used to confuse the circumstances for the evidence that I have not moved. But once I ground myself, once I look around, I look within, I realize that I am standing on new ground. So though the pain might feel familiar, each time I experience it, I am different. And each time shows me that the love that I have and hold for myself must be infinite. I cannot take the rejection and the projection and internalize it as the shameful proof that my work and my worth is little, right? That I ain't did nothing just because people are rejecting me. So with that, I know and learn that the compassion that I hold and have for myself must be infinite. Because if I have the privilege to meet time again and again, that means that I have the opportunity to change. So this last go round, I treaded lighter in this entanglement. I was not interested in my usual practice of self-abandonment that looks like giving away my whole self too soon. This time I gave myself the space to assess and reassess, to practice speaking up for my needs, and to do what I could to meet her requests rather than to do everything I could. This time, in the aftermath, I choose to accept my heaviness, not as a flaw to be corrected, but just rather as my state of being. And I recognize that she was in fact telling me the truth, like all the lovers before her who told me that it shouldn't be this difficult to love me. She put in all the effort that she could, but she literally could not afford to give me more. It took all her effort just to be with herself. I understand that. I've been there. And in some ways, looking back, right, I see a version of myself in her. That version of me uses self-abandonment as the primary tool for connection, right? The strength of my connection was determined by just how much I was asked and required to shrink. And every time I ignored the feelings I had in my own body where I felt like something was off or strange. That was me falling into those old patterns. That was me falling back into what I had learned to grow from and to change. I don't have to feel ashamed about that tool, right? That tool of self-abandonment. Self-abandonment helped me survive when the folks around me did not have the emotional capacity to care for me alongside themselves. I don't have to feel ashamed that I tried again and again to confirm my worth through the change in others' actions. I don't have to see the end of a relationship that partially served me as evidence that I didn't do enough work, and that as evidence that I didn't do enough work, and that I require too much work to be with. And those rejections, those endings were divine redirections back to myself. It was divine and ancestral redirections to allow my heart to break in order to expand it further, to see me differently and clearly past the distortion of trauma. In the clearing, I recognize the truth. My desires are not too much. My fullness can be held, loved, and supported. I can give myself without reservation to the ones who are willing and able to accept me. I cannot make anyone grow to love me. And perhaps the most loving thing for me to do in those situations is to leave people where they are. In this clearing, I have a new understanding of myself and of her. I listened to a beautiful podcast that is entitled Everyone is in Love with Me, and I'll link it in the show notes. But through that, I came to have a new understanding of what happened, a new understanding of how I am to be in the aftermath of this. And though I loved and cared for her, and things ended in a way that was meant to hurt me, I am not bitter. She just was not ready to love me in the way that I wanted and needed. My vulnerability, my openness, my expansiveness was too much. And to feel safe, she needed to keep her world as small as possible, so small that there wasn't any room for me in it. I know that her rejection of me wasn't an indication that I had failed or done anything wrong, but rather that she recognized her capacity and her unwillingness to change. I am sure that one day she will find someone that she feels safe enough with to let into those places where her insecurities lie. I am confident that wherever she goes, love is there. And when she meets those people, that lover, that person, she will expand her capacity for them. I am confident that in time I will find a lover or a few who will have the capacity for my love, who will choose to change and grow with me. They will find the weight of me to be comforting, my presence to be yet another affirmation that their ancestors loved them and that they love themselves. I want to give myself generously and abundantly to them. I want to receive myself as Spirit does, generously, without question. I want somebody to receive me like Spirit does. I know, though, that the only way that I can find them is by being my most expansive, expressive self. I cannot compromise my voice or my being, my body. I cannot contort myself around others' visions of what a lover can be because I am afraid that the absence of another would confirm that I am meant to be alone. I cannot contort myself around others' visions of lovers because someone in my past has convinced me that I am not worthy as who I am. So that crossroads, that choice for me is to heal, is to grow, and to continue on my own path as the most expansive version of myself that I can be. It is times like these that I remember that this pain, this hardship, this loss, right? This is what these tools are for. My spiritual practice has to allow me to love my life, to live with less fear, and to live through the world with self-love and self-acceptance. My spiritual practice has to recognize that the natural order of healing is not linear, but moves like a vortex, like that spiral where I meet time again and again, and with the choice to change and to be changed. And I know that this choice allows me to create the world I want to see because, let's be real, oppression don't come from no healed space, right? Oppressors and their spiritual systems, their spiritual practices don't hold the keys to self-fulfillment. The domination and destruction of the world and every being and non-being on it in pursuit of status and wealth, what I call life in my dissertation, and to escape death, right, is the fruit of being unwilling to see oneself and one's pain with open eyes and working hands and change. Each time that I am at the crossroads, I choose to allow my struggles and my trauma to transform me, to initiate me into a new beginning. And I know that every time I make that choice, that I am refusing to carry my oppressor with me to freedom. Drawing from the wisdom of our elder, Ashada Shakur, I want to enter her viewpoint on healing into this conversation. She says, my whole life had created wounds, scars in me, that in Cuba I was able to find a space to begin to heal, to begin to think, yeah, this happened. And I can look at it and see it for what it was, but not be there, not be destroyed by it, not be turned into something bitter and evil by it, and not be like my enemies, because I think that the greatest betrayal that a revolutionary can participate in is to become like the people you are struggling against, to become like your persecutors, your oppressors. I think is a betrayal and a sin. I think that people who want to change this planet have to seriously understand that as human beings, we have to work to be good. I'm saying that in many ways. Good at what we do, better people, better in the way that we relate to people, that we treat other people, better in our ability to outreach to people, better in so many ways. And the wounds that are inflicted on our families, on ourselves, we have to heal. We have to work within our families, within our communities, within our neighborhoods to make them livable. And so I say all this to say that I return to these lessons, to these moments of heartbreak and grief, and I make the choice to heal so that I don't resemble my oppressor. For many of us, our oppressors, whether they be folks that we are in romantic relationship with, familial relationship with, or other forms of interpersonal relationship with, or even institutions, right? They don't make the same choice to heal or change when presented with their pain or shortcomings. Sometimes they don't think that the change is worth whatever was wrought with domination and ill-gained power. Sometimes they are afraid of the new challenges that change will bring. And so they choose to go with the devil or troubles they know. Perhaps the refusal to change comes from a need to be in control. That doesn't mean that we have to resemble them, though, right? It is, in fact, a betrayal and a sin to do so. So we can come to the crossroads and choose a new life no matter how many times the towers fall in our own. But we have to believe that we are worth the transformation. So I ask you, dear listener, what will you choose? Do you believe that you are worthy of a new beginning? In the time of inflation, where rent, food, gas, life is too damn high, we are well acquainted with the capitalist sense of worth. But what does it mean to be worthy of a new beginning? And why is that important for our ruthless self-devotion practices? Here, I want us to hold the encouragement and admonishment of Mami Wata, who instructed me through my divination, right, to hold myself with dignity throughout this transformation. Dignity, according to the Oxford Languages Dictionary, is the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. It is a composed or serious manner or style, a sense of pride in oneself, self-respect, a high or honorable rank or position. So what does it mean to be worthy? Well, let's think about worthiness. According to Cambridge Dictionary, worthiness is how suitable something or someone is. It is the quality of deserving respect or attention. So with these definitions, we have to think about what we are worth and how we measure that. We might start by thinking about the foundation of worth and dignity for systems of oppression that invert the natural order. So, the natural order denotes value, suitability, respect, and attention through existence, flow, and cycles. So, in the natural order, nothing that exists is necessarily permanent. The only permanent thing is change. Things go through flow and cycles. There is not that amassing or hoarding of wealth and power that doesn't change. And so, in a world that is unfettered by oppression, everything has worth because it is, and because it is connected to each other through that flow, through those cycles. And so white supremacy, cis heteropatriarchy, ableism, anti-Blackness, classism, and other forms of oppression distort this order. They misname that flow in those cycles as uncivilized because they aren't contained and controlled and managed in a way to grow unnaturally. It demonizes this natural order as unholy. And in turn, it institutes a hierarchy of worth that are based on different arrangements of power and privilege. Scholars have called matrices of domination. And what that really means is just a series of categories like race, class, sexuality, etc., different forms of identity coming together to determine what someone's worth is. And so these matrices put those who are not worthy of the earth because they believe for some reason that even though they live on the earth, that if they destroy it, then their destruction is not mutual with the earth, but we know the truth, right? It puts those folks in the false position of being the most worthy so that they can gain at the world's expense. And to buttress this system, to support it, they created a religious belief system that reaffirms that reaffirms humanity's domination over other living beings, that reaffirms, quote unquote, that those of us who are Black, deserve to be at the bottom, right? And in that religious belief system of Christianity, one learns that they are fundamentally unworthy, that they are not worthy because they exist. You are doomed because you exist, right? And the only way to escape that doom, that liberation from hell and from death, is through accepting Jesus Christ into your heart. You sacrifice yourself daily by reading the word of God. And this Savior is the one who enables you to transform your life. Through him, the world is transformed. And it is through him that those who believe in him, right, can gain the world. But are they worthy of it? I mean, think about it, right? How do you gain a world that you are not worthy of? Because you're disconnected from it, right? Through this belief system. So you are no longer worthy because you exist. You are doomed because you exist. So how do you then make you have value in this world? You dominate. You oppress. You steal. You steal land. You steal bodies. You steal diamonds. You steal gold. You steal water. Settler colonialism. You occupy other people's land because you got to fortify the belief that you are worthy. Capitalism, right? That's how you gain a world you're not worthy of. And for those of us who are stolen from or whose ancestors were stolen from, we are then told that we are unworthy because we've been stolen from. We're told that we don't deserve to have our things back. And it is truly and purely the lie of anti-Black oppression that you have to earn the worth that was stolen from your ancestors, who the systems falsely name as worthless. But if you think about it, right, how can they be worth nothing when their backs, their hands, their genitals, and their genius and their deaths, even their deaths, right, comprise the foundation and currency of the modern world? And also, right, if it were actually true that our ancestors were nothing, but their sacrifice and their living were the foundation of the world, then wouldn't worlds built on nothing be easier to destroy? So as we move along the path to healing and liberation, I believe that we have to be vigilant and attuned to how we value ourselves and our liberation. If we choose not to change, we are telling ourselves and our ancestors and our descendants that we nor they are worthy of new beginnings. If we choose to believe in the assigned worth dictated by, then what is the point of our work? What are we doing here? If I'm only worthy through DI, then what the fuck am I doing? If I'm only worth something because my back is a bridge, then what am I doing? If I am only worthy because I am a martyr, then what am I doing? What work am I achieving? What liberation am I working for? Whose liberation am I working for? And who is liberated by walking across my back? If we believe the falsehoods, the projections of our enemies, and at times, right, even those close to us, even us ourselves, then we forfeit the dignity needed to transform. If we move through this process with dignity, though, that unshakable and undeniable knowledge of our self-worth, then our fight for self-determination would not be spent trying to continually appeal to the oppressor within and without. We would be fighting, struggling, hustling with them to get what we deserve. And to paraphrase my late father, we wouldn't take their wooden nickels and try to spend them or hoard them in an attempt to accrue value in systems and relationships that are dependent upon our belief in our worthlessness. One of my favorite aspects about my journey into Ifa has been the challenge of self-transformation. Through my Ifa practice, I'm learning that I'm worthy as I am. I don't have to earn the Orisha's love because the relationship is reciprocal. They care for me and I care for them. I care for my Ori leads and guides me. I am not doomed. I'm worthy because I am. I don't have a savior. I have Orisha who are in relationship with me to help me better my life and myself. And then I get to try that again and again and again versus the, one-time shot to get into heaven or else, right? In this relationship, I learn I'm worthy because I am. I'm worth liberating because I am. And so I say to you that you are worth liberating because you are, beloved. Do you believe that? Do you believe that you are worth liberating? Do you believe that the stories others have told you about yourself, or the ones that you may have told yourself to get through those times when others projected their own self-loathing, their own self-hate, their own feelings of worthlessness onto you to oppress you? Do you believe those stories sum up your value? Are you trading yourself, your dream, your desires, your body, your mind, your spirit, your time for the wooden nickels of your oppressor? If so, root into your dignity and trust in your capacity to change. Interrogate those beliefs that keep you stuck, stagnant, and looking for a savior. Sever that savior, as Jada K. Story would say, because it is you, right? You are the one who saves you. That is ruthless self-devotion, recognizing your own power to save yourself. So you might start by asking yourself in spirit, what am I not willing to accept? Who or what am I trying to change to prove that I am lovable or worthy? Where have I given away my worth, my power, my agency, my beauty? And if the answers to those questions lead you to another person or to an institution, ask yourself, does what I want or need require another version of this person or this institution? Can I truly get my needs met here with dignity and with worth? Is that job going to ask you to grovel and to lower yourself? Is that nigga going to ask you to lower yourself? Is that nigget going to ask you to lower yourself and your worth? I hope that you know that it's okay to choose yourself and leave. Because baby, no, okay, we abolitionists around here, okay? We're not doing reform, right? We're not doing reform. We're not trying to take oppressive institutions and systems and take their basic components and resituate them to make them better or more palatable for us, right? You're not going to negotiate with your worth. There is no need to. The world in which you are liberated will not require that from you. So trust that you know what you know, and trust that you will receive the truth and the strength to move forward. Our practices of ruthless self-devotion help us restore ourselves and our belief in ourselves. Through diligent protection of our worthiness, we open our arms to transformation without fear that it will make us less than. What is on the other side of our transformation from oppressed to self-determined? Obviously, the worlds we want to see. We might ask ourselves, or you might ask yourself, right? If I am ruthless in my self-devotion, if I am single-minded and single-hearted about my vision, what will I gain? What if I choose to decenter the loss, the neglect, the abuse, the trauma of my experiences? That doesn't mean let them go and devalue them or spiritually bypass them, but not to center them as the core of who we are and our purpose and what we are meant to experience in this world. Not to center the fact that we have these challenges, but rather, what if we chose to center the way that we transform through them so that when we meet time and time again, we are anew? What lessons can I glean so that the next time I encounter a shoe at the crossroads, or the next time I petition Oya for change, it is to walk through the ruins of the old life I had to something new with dignity. If you are willing and able, affirm with me by placing one of your hands on your heart and the other on your stomach. Take a breath with me. And affirm, I choose to change. I transform my life with dignity. When I choose to root my life in the truth of my worth, my vulnerability and openness are rewarded. I am already free. The cost of my freedom is my fear, but my worth is not rooted in the absence of oppression. The cost of the love I seek is my fear, but my worth is not rooted in the way others treat me. I am worthy because I am. I am ready to meet myself on the other side of everything, the good, the bad, the fugly, the pleasurable, the desirable, the true, the liberating. I am ready to be transformed through generosity. I am ruthlessly devoted to myself. I am worthy of new beginnings. That's all I have for y'all today. Thank you for taking the time to listen or to watch if you're watching this. I hope that this episode is the foundation for you to be ruthlessly devoted to yourself. I want to express my deepest gratitude to my elevated ancestors and spirit guides, to the Most High God for giving me the inspiration and the fortitude to do this work. I do not take it lightly. I also want to thank Jemiah Jacob, black.loved.free community coordinator, for her work that helps enable everything that we do in our learning communities. Shout out to the real niggas in my life who love me enough to walk with me through my failures, who hold me in my bad decisions and remind me of my worth. Thank you. If you want to keep up with future episodes, follow us on Instagram at black.loved.free. Be sure to give us 5 stars and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps us reach other listeners. If you would like to give us feedback or to submit a question for a reading on the podcast, if you would like to give us feedback, send us an email at black.loved.free podcast@gmail.com. And if you want to donate to the podcast, visit the link on our website. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our Substack and YouTube, we are at black.loved.free on all platforms. Find us and subscribe. The fully expanded version of this episode will be available on our Substack next week, and the links to both will be in the show notes. Lastly, may you find a sacred, soft place to care for yourselves and for each other. May you radiate in the truth that you are the one who saves you. May you find the strength to be Black, loved, and free. Until next time, bye. It's a new season coming to me, yeah. It's a new season coming to me. It's a new season